One second. There we go. Dun, da, da. And oh, guess what? We're recording. It's
All
magical.
right.
Okay, now you can be awesome and funny and great.
Okay, sounds good. So,
Who are you
Bruce
talking
Charles, you were a teenager when you first started working for WIFC, right?
I did. I was 18. I got hired by George Butner. My last name is Heikkinen. And when I went in there, he said, Heikkinen, I'm a Finn. Heikkinen will not work. What's your middle name? I said, Charles. He said, you're Bruce Charles. And I guess the rest could be history if you'd like.
How long were you at WIFC?
About 7 or 8 months. Well, no. At SAU, I was at 7 or 8 months, and then IFC till 76, so 5.5 years.
Wow. You may have heard this story, but Bruce, we talked to Jackson Del Weaver here not too long ago. We were talking about how everything got started on WIFC, and you know what it sounded like to me? It sounded extremely dramatic, going from beautiful music and then all of a sudden the Beatles and Revolution. Were there situations where you heard about this from people in the street around Wausau that, what are you guys doing with this radio station?
Well, I didn't come on till 71, but I'll tell you what, every teenager knew about WIFC very quickly. And so what can you say? We were the kings.
Hey, how about that?
That's for Miss Vicky.
Yeah.
By the way, is it okay to call you Miss Vicky?
I guess.
People from Brentwood, Wisconsin, they all address the ladies Miss whatever it be.
Oh, do they?
That's what we did.
Yeah, because I was telling Nikki this morning, we were talking about shortening up people's names. We do that all the time because Nikki Montgomery takes forever, and so I shorten it down to Nick, and so that's what I call her is Nick.
So Miss Nick?
Yeah.
That'd be good.
I just don't call me Nicole, because that's just too weird for me.
It is.
Yeah.
Jackson Del Weaver, if I may, was one of my heroes, and I just had a reconnection with him maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And again, the fact that he was the first one to play a record on IFC was really cool. Now, and I think he made mention of the fact that the station actually had to buy records at the time. And by the time I was a music director in 71, the record companies were pounding on our door to play the records, because we had a top 40 once a month. 3 went in, 3 went out. And it was extremely competitive for the record companies. In fact, FM radio pretty much was the showcase, if I can, for the record companies. Very competitive. They would send us, whereas Dell or the station had to buy the records, they would send literally to us boxes of albums or 45s just to somehow influence us. And that's what we gave away, a lot of the records to our audience.
Well, and that's a quest that I wanted to find out about, Bruce, is that we're wondering if you're directly responsible with the 10th caller wins, because it's the oldest thing I can think of in radio for contesting is you get the albums, you get your giveaways, and hey, 10th caller wins. Did you start that?
Well, did I? I doubt it. Probably Weaver did, and cost the station a lot of money because they were buying these records.
Yeah.
No, no, I didn't. But I'm telling you what, and it's probably true for you today, but if I said I'm taking the 13th caller, I'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, that's how much demand we had, or maybe that's how many listeners, obviously, we had. It was fun.
You're going lickety split, and that's why at some point, a lot of radio stations said we need more phone lines because we've got all these people calling at the same time, and we don't want them to get a busy signal. And now they make control boards like this one where the phone system is built right into the control board because you use it so damn much, But for you and talking to callers back then is you guys, I'm sure, were their heroes. And so when you went out and did personal appearances and all that, what were those situations like early on?
Well, we did a lot of high school record hops. Now you got to think, I'm a dinosaur for God's sake. We were before internet, we were before MTV, we were before disco for God's sake. So again, we did a lot of record hops at the high schools. We did reunions, we did wedding dances and stuff like that. And yeah, it was fun. Bob's Musical Isle, if that would mean a name to you at all, would provide the equipment for us. And the guy who played the records for me, Dr. Stone, we got free equipment from Bob's Musical Isle just to plug them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I heard a couple stories because the oldest guy in broadcasting we know would be Tom King. He's 500 years old. It's amazing. But he also is a big fan of like Wausau East and Wausau West. And we talked about bands like Styx and Rush would come through here and they would play high school setups. And we're going, there's just no way, because I personally can't imagine that. But this is how they made beer money back in the day. And
Sure.
so do you have any memorable acts that came through Central Wisconsin?
Oh boy, Nitty Gritty Band for sure. I'm thinking of right now, but a lot of times before the performers maybe would come on, then we would have a chance to do interviews with them. Let's say I was looking at a list here. I talked to Carole King. I talked to Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and who else was it? Don McLean, John Denver. So as a promo, you know, we would talk to them, and then the kids would go to the concerts later, I guess.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. That had to be a hoot. You know, when they're coming through, and that's just the thing nowadays, is that this is what's radically changed for radio is access to being able to talk to these artists. You would think during the pandemic you could have more of a chance to talk to them, but it hasn't worked out that way. And we're wondering if we will ever see them live again, because a lot of them, they're just on hold. So.
Now you guys are so sophisticated. We basically ran the whole board, and we had to always think ahead, obviously, because as the record was playing, what's next? Cue up the next record, the next spot, the jingle or whatever. So you had to stay ahead all the time because your dead air was an absolute no-no. In fact, one time, I think 10 seconds, 15 seconds of dead air, Cliff Thompson, my general manager, came in. What the hell's going on here? I mean, so you had to be on for those 4 or 5 hours, that's for sure.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That is amazing.
So what was your day like when you worked for WIFC?
Well, it depended, of course. Mornings, up in the morning, and any way you go. You guys are on the morning show, so you know how important the time and weather is. So basically that was it. And before your show, you had to prepare your songs and what are you going to play? What in the top 40, or I should say, I'm scrambling. How am I doing so far?
You're doing fine.
Thank you.
Okay. It's always good to work with a pro.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Right. We were a top 40 station. And maybe 2 times an hour we'd play an album cut as well. So basically that was about it, I guess.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Now our days are filled with, we don't have to worry about prepping the music and everything. That's all in the computer.
Sure.
But after we're done with our show, we obviously have to prep the content of our show. Then after our show, we're blogging, we're doing interviews, we're doing podcasting, we're doing live broadcasts. There's always something to do. And it's funny how many people think that we work for 4 hours and go home. That's not the case.
It actually wasn't that sophisticated. We would prepare our show a half hour before and go from there, and everything pretty much was on the cuff. So. Are you guys familiar with National Lampoon Records at all?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we kind of had different bits. Our announcers had different personalities. Our newsman, Jonathan Edwards, was a Spanish guy that would come in, and he also did a French voice. And in fact, I was telling Nikki earlier, he was Francois Dubois, and he would talk about one specific thing I'm thinking about is that he was comparing a town in France to Anigo. And so
this indigo is very much similar to whatever. And a lady actually called up from Antigo thinking that she thought he was real and that she wanted him to speak at the Chamber of Commerce, which I thought was pretty funny. I mean, anyhow, that's pretty. A German scientist, my buddy Billy Mackey was Professor Schlick, and he always came up with some sort of invention that he came up with. And one of the ones that he came up with as I hung up the phone on him was a vacuum cleaner that actually would vacuum your house around, you know. And I said, that'll never happen. And of course, that's the only one he came up with that actually made sense.
See? Theater of the mind.
There you go.
You guys had it going on.
Well, at times. And we only would do that maybe once every 2 weeks or whatever. But at times I was the Reverend Charles. I preach the word of rock and roll. Put your hand on the radio right now. We're talking about rock and roll and Led Zeppelin and The Who. I thought we tried to do this one time, or at least I asked the late Cliff Thompson if I could tell everybody that I was broadcasting naked that day. and that we tried to encourage people. He said we couldn't do that, but that's another thing we thought about. Although I did have some kids, younger kids, that I told them, I knew them from the III area, that if they would streak, that I would buy beer. And I'll be damned if they didn't actually streak. And supposedly it was in the newspaper. Supposedly it was, but yes, these guys did. And I had to buy them beer, of course, you know. But don't tell your mom and dad.
See, and that's the power of radio, and I think it's always been there. There's power of media, you know, and it's still to today. You can tell people to do things, obviously, and they do it. But it's so interesting to hear some of the stories from back in the day, you know, and it reminds me of the movie Network. You remember where he sticks his head out the window and goes, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." And everybody was mad and was on the same page. And so there was always that feeling that, you know, if you got to that level with your audience that you were on the same page, you know, then you knew you had made it.
It was a lot of fun. I found this picture from Jeff Ash, and by the way, I have not changed at all.
No,
not even a little bit.
And there you go. I think my hair was a little darker back in those days, but this is the what we had for our top 40. So 1 through 40 is the songs, and then they were once a month, and they were labeled as far as the numbers are concerned.
Wow. And 45's on the pegboard. How about that?
45s. In fact, a lot of kids wouldn't even know what a 45 is.
You're right.
No.
But I was thinking, I thought to myself that the late 1970 is when Elton John came out with his first #1 song, Your Song. And the influence that maybe we had to introduce all these different performers. But by the time the 70s were done, Elton John had 6 #1 hits, and we were introducing all these performers. Another story I'll share, if I may. A buddy of mine knocked on the door, and he said his cousin from back east has an album I want you to listen to. Okay, that's fine. Let's listen to it. And what's the guy's name? Bruce Springsteen is his name. Oh. So, I mean, here we are again introducing performers that no one had actually heard of it at that time.
That had to be weird to say. Here's an upstart, Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, looking back.
Some guy from New Jersey. There you go. I guess.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. So, well, Bruce, listen, we've got to wrap up, but I just wanted to say this is so cool to get an opportunity to kind of dig back into our archives. I would rather do it this way, you know, than read it or anything else like that. I would rather talk to the sources. And you're one of them.
Well, yes, thank you so much. This is my second video cast. And by the way, you can see now why I wasn't in television.
Oh,
Miss Vicky, it's a pleasure. Dave, you're the man. And by the way, you see this guy?
Look at that.
Yeah. He was 6 feet tall before the loss to Tampa Bay.
Things happen.
Oh
I know. I know. What
Exactly.
do you do?
And I'm a big collector of Marilyn Monroe, and I have been for years. When I was at WIFC, someone gave me a Marilyn Monroe T-shirt, and from there I've got hundreds of Marilyn Monroe, and that the wife says, "We need to get rid of that crap." Yes, dear.
Of course. So good
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. Keep in touch, all right?
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, too much fun. That is the
Okay.
coolest thing. You
Cool.
guys.
Okay, bye. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.